We're going to call this meeting of the Board of Health to order. My name is Thomas Corey. This is Donna Strong, Dr. Daniel Souza, Tess Curran, agent of the board. Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived by those present, and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. We have to approve the minutes of the meeting from July 2nd. Do we have any additions, deletions, or corrections to be made to the minutes of the meeting as printed?
I have none.
Do we have a motion to accept?
I make a motion to accept the minutes of the meeting from July 10th, 2019.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Now we have a request for variance for keeping chickens from Melissa Sylvia on Woodman Street.
This is my wife.
Oh, please join us in the hot seat, sir.
In the hot seat.
She doesn't look at all like Melissa.
And Roger, you're presenting?
Yes. How is everyone today?
We're doing just fine.
Fine, thank you.
Okay, we have a request for chickens. Roger, if you would.
Yes, we have a request for chickens at the corner of Woodman and King Street, 685 Woodman Street. I was there today. Those are current pictures I took today. As you can see, it's a very nice property. I have no issues with it. They were very on time with the stuff. If their information, they've got a contract with a pest control company. They've even got a veterinarian that gave vaccinations. You can see they have their own pictures. They have, I do believe it's 5, right?
5, yes.
These are little bantam.
They're about that big.
They're only little small things. So, there
You
might...
get to the guy, a chicken is a chicken.
A chicken is a chicken.
These lay little eggs.
Okay,
Yeah, they're
very
little
good.
eggs, yes.
You need 2 to make
Find
one.
that out. There does seem to be a little bit of an issue. I seen some holes around, but they do have bait traps there.
Mhm.
So they are taking care of whatever issues there are.
Okay, is there anyone here to speak for this variance? Anyone here to speak against the variance?
I did, now that you mention it, I did have 2 objections. I
Okay.
don't have anything on paper. I was told from someone in my office, somebody called. So,
Do we have a name and address? Do we just have an objection, an anonymous
Yeah,
at this
yeah.
point?
yeah. I don't believe anything's from any abutter, but I'm not sure.
So you don't even know the location of the...
Mm.
If I may, you actually can't even see these chickens from the street unless you look very hard. They are very well hidden. And they're not hidden for any other reason, for their own safety.
You can,
First and foremost, they are pets. My wife and my daughter love these chickens. Personally, I could take them or leave them, but that's just me. But I do like their eggs very much. They're very sweet. They've never bitten us. They're very calm. We were fostering a rooster at one time, which we are not anymore. We were just holding it for a week or so, and I think that might be where the complaint came, because he was loud and he was getting on my nerves as well. He has since found a nice home in Westport, Massachusetts, at a nice farm, and we have nothing but female hens at this time.
Can they be seen from your abutter's property?
They cannot. I have a 6-foot white, actually 8-foot white stockade fence all around the property. The only way that anyone could physically see them is to look over the fence into my property, or from the street side where I do have a white picket fence. Again, you would have to look pretty hard to find them.
you have a picture of that view.
So they're not noisy or...
No, they're actually very calm.
Yeah, they were quiet.
So
No
we're-
odor?
So we're looking for a variance on the 50-foot rule?
Yes.
Okay.
There is approximately a 3-foot separation to the fence from the coop on one side, but the back is right up against the fence, the other
Okay.
parcel.
So we already have the rodent contract in place?
Yes,
We already have the no rooster rule in place?
in place.
Those are our usual conditions for granting. Anyone have any other questions?
No.
I guess we'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to request a variance for keeping of chickens at the Melissa A. Sylvia property on 685 Woodman Street in Fall River, Massachusetts.
I second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good luck.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it. And if you're done with me, I will take my leave and have a nice day. Is there anything else I need to do, or?
I just.
Mr. Casavant will be in touch with you for the permit
Okay.
and all that kind of stuff.
All right. Thank you very much, folks.
Okay.
Have a good afternoon.
Next, we have a request for septic system variance for Verissimo Maderas at 6 Judge Street in Fall River. Mr. Gorodetsky. Did I say that right?
Yes, perfect.
I don't know about perfectly, but
Doesn't get any better.
Mr. Gorodetsky was here last meeting, and we asked him to come back with some additional stuff.
Yes.
And Roger, are you presenting? I know Mr. Fry is here also.
Yes. Mr. Gorodetsky has sent us a new plan for a bottomless sand filter. Right now, we have from Mr. Fry has some, I guess you would say, suggestions or requirements.
Some are, basically, it's,
The way I
There's
read the
the
letter, they
regulatory-
were conditions.
there's the regulatory requirements, which are necessary for any of these systems. And then the one additional comment that I think that I provided was that presumably the developer of the property, when they put in an emergency generator, one would presume that they're going to connect the entire house. And you also don't know what kind of heating system they're going to use. So you want to make sure that they are, if you're going to provide 24-hour protection using the emergency generator as the source of that protection, then you have to make sure that there's sufficient fuel capacity that's available. And so you've got to size your fuel tank that's supplying the generator to provide 24 hours for the entire load of the home. Now that's probably it's still probably a pretty small number, so it's not particularly onerous requirement. It just requires them to go through the exercise of identifying what the total load is on the generator, so what's the design load of the generator, what is the fuel use for the generator, and whether that fuel will also serve any other purposes such as heating or cooking. Because if it's a propane type system, it could be heating, cooking, clothes dryer. You might have multiple uses, and any additional use of that source of fuel would reduce the availability of fuel for other uses, obviously.
Okay.
And in addition to the, regulations, some additional, I guess, monitoring or testing could be added to ensure, because as we had discussed last time, there is an issue with neighboring wells and having an unknown sense of what type of wells or the depth of those wells. And that's the write-up that I had provided you with prior to occupancy, that abutters wells should have a baseline test completed as a 3-month and 6-month test, and that these results would be submitted to the board.
And are those at the cost of the people at 6 Judge Street,
I
correct?
would like to object to that. The reason being that I'm sorry for interrupting, the wells are within Title V setback, 100-foot setback, regardless of what condition those wells are, so there is no requirement for well testing in Title V if the wells are more than 100 feet apart. And that's why the system was designed the way the system was designed. It doesn't require well separation requirement, so if Title V doesn't require, you cannot import this regulation.
Mr. Gradetsky is correct on that point, that it isn't a strict requirement of the regulation. Whether or not, and I'm not in a position to determine whether or not it's within the board's authority to make that requirement, regardless of, so in addition to what the regulations require. The cost of those is not hugely significant, on the order of $100 to $200 per test, just to get the baseline results and one follow-up. What is a little bit more significant is the additional recommended testing for the effluent coming out of the treatment system. And that is because the reason that's recommended is for it to qualify as a Tier 1 system under Rhode Island regulations, which the Massachusetts regulations piggyback off of, it's required to meet slightly more stringent effluent treatment characteristics before it goes to the sand filter. So those numbers are, I believe, 20 milligrams per liter for total suspended solids, 20 milligrams per liter BOD, and a test for 5 milligrams per liter, not to exceed 5 milligrams per liter fats, oils, and grease. And because of the way that the system, the AX20 system, is regulated in Mass, under a typical application, it would normally only be required to go to 30 milligrams per liter. Because they're applying it as a Tier 1 system per Rhode Island's regulations, it should meet the 20 milligrams per liter, and this additional testing just confirms that it's meeting those requirements.
That's reasonable. That's correct. But as far as well as testing, let's say, for example, current wells do not, current water doesn't meet any requirements, then what?
With respect to the, speaking briefly to the variances for offset to the property line, from an engineering and health perspective, I don't believe that it constitutes any risk along those lines.
And it's better than the existing
And it's
system.
better than the existing.
And would you mind just, because I know that during our last meeting, it had also been brought up that the Watuppa pond, that is in the backyard of the property, and we have an ongoing algae bloom, which may be impacted by septic systems. Now, there's, I think, 170 feet or so.
It's roughly 170 feet. It's, so the primary impacts are not, it would be difficult to say that they are, we don't have any documentation that says that it's septic systems per se. It's more likely failed septic systems. So this is an improvement in that regard. And I would say that it would be onerous, it would be an overburden on this property owner to require them to make extreme efforts, where we also have 2 other communities that are contributing to that situation, in addition to, his Fall River neighbors that may have failed septic systems that are undetected at this time.
And just a side note, the way the system was configured is designed with enhanced nitrogen removal, so there is additional recirculation
Correct.
through the unit. So whatever I could have done was done, and that's pretty much it. Requires only one variance at this point from the property line, and the reason for that, so I could keep away from the wells. And that's fairly expensive system. It requires proper and extensive maintenance and testing, and if the system is not maintained and monitored, there is a telemetry unit that accompanies it. It will not function properly. That's why originally I was not very much in favor, because the other system was built and forget, but be it as it may, at this moment it's, even when I filed the construction permit, I emphasized in red that system requires operation maintenance, and those are very
How many abutters are there?
affected abutters. Two.
So if there's 2 abutters, and each test only cost about $100 according to Mr. Fry, and you would have to do it 3 times, that's like $600 for goodwill for the neighbors, because we had some strong objections to this whole thing the first time around, so.
That all I understand, but where do you end? It's not required. You don't have it. You don't have your bylaws. You have Title V regulations. You go by the state regulations. State regulations do not require it. There is a reason why state does things the way they do it. I mean, where do we end then?
And it was an eye-opening experience to know that these things don't have to be tested unless there's exchange of property. There could be systems out there, hundreds of systems that are failing, and there's
Correct.
no regulation to have these private wells tested.
Correct.
So the onus really should be on the owners of these systems to have them tested for their own edification. I do think it's a bit onerous
It's
to
good
start looking
practice on,
into other.
it's good practice on well owners
Yeah.
to test their own systems. I don't do it as often as I should.
But
No,
it's
but
just
if I
amazing
was
that
them,
there's no regulation like every 10 years or so, especially when you're around a natural resource.
There is one more point, as this is a Rhode Island system. Rhode Island allows 80-foot well separation, because I'm Rhode Island P and I licensed for designers in Rhode Island. Rhode Island allows 80-foot well separation if wells are downstream from the system. This system is upstream from the wells that are in immediate vicinity. All other wells on opposite side of the street, because we located all the wells around it, are more than 100 feet to 100 feet apart. So the only 3 wells that I show that, 2 wells actually, that are within 100 feet, including property well, that are wells within 100. I must show every well within 150 feet from the system, so I showed them, but that's what it is. So, yeah, everything can be tested, but again,
It is kind of scary, though, that who knows what's going on out there.
no, it's that's very true, and the only real solution to this is like what was done on the Lake Street is to build the sewer. Which to build there is also not the end of the world. It's not that far apart. You just have to go to the Sportsman Club. I've been involved. I've designed on the Lake Avenue probably 10 septic systems, maybe 15. I don't remember how many over the years. So some of them were tight tanks, but I kind of know the name.
Alex, would you consider advising your client that it might be in his own best interest to do a baseline test?
I will ask him, but I will, for his well, yes, I have no problem with that. He'll probably test it. But you start testing abutting wells, it's like opening can of worms. I mean, psychologically speaking. And
No, I
again,
get that, but the only thing is, if their wells were already bad, then they can't be blaming you.
well,
And
yeah,
that's why I was suggesting kind of possibly a baseline test ahead, so that you would know that you'd have something to gauge against.
But what it is, what the system that they have now is pretty much a pipe stuck into the groundwater table. It's absolutely polluting. It's the worst thing you can have. There's no groundwater table separation. It works like a charm probably, but well, if you have a water pipe into the Taunton River, it will also work like a charm. But that's the problem. Well, if I am objecting it, it's up to you. I cannot speak for you, but I think this system it's fairly expensive. The cost, because the lady across the street said that what it cost her $40,000. It's probably more now. Probably, and again, I don't know. It's hard to tell. There are prices all over the board. I had some quotes $50,000, and some quotes $30,000. I don't know, but that's a hell of a system, and it will require also perennial maintenance. At some point, maybe 8 to 10 years from now, there is a contents of this Arenco unit, AX20, that needs to be, there is a hanging filter fabric that has to be probably replaced if the effluent test shows that BODs and total suspended solids and nitrogen is above the limit. So basically it's a small wastewater treatment plant. That's what this system does.
There is nitrogen reduction through this system.
It reduces nitrogen through the system. I know Westport is trying to push everybody there, but I don't think it's going to happen or not. But it is, no doubt about it, it's a good system. It's probably the best there is. It is expensive.
So if we stick to point 2 about testing of the effluent and point 3 about the generator capacity, would you be
Yes.
agreeable to that?
Yes, but that has to be done by default.
Is everyone agreeable to that?
Yeah.
And then maybe the suggestion on point 1, but not a
Yeah.
mandate.
Yes.
I was thinking more like goodwill for him, for whoever's gonna live there.
Just a suggestion.
That's the testing, yes.
So we're granting the variances for,
See, my thing is if, I agree with JR and everything, if there wasn't for these two variances right here, we probably wouldn't even be here.
Right.
Am I right?
Correct.
No problem.
Because it's just cut and dry, you just got those two variances.
Right.
That's it.
It's property, on the property line variance, that's what it is.
All right.
That's rather, shall I say, it's not physical variance, it doesn't, septic system doesn't kill where the property line is. So,
okay,
So we want to make a motion? I make a motion to grant the variances requested for 6 Judge Street is relative to the septic system.
and these 2 additional
Stressing
conditions?
We're including the 2 additional.
conditions on
The
them?
monthly testing of the effluent and the generator issue.
You have a second?
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted.
thank you.
Good luck.
Right, but now I have to have sleepless nights if this thing doesn't, if this thing doesn't work. I heard horror stories too. Let's see about
Now we have a vote on the proposed regulation to ensure the sanitary and safe operation of adult-use marijuana establishments and the sale of adult-use marijuana. Speak for or speak against, is comment, or?
Just here to press buttons on my computer.
Okay, very good. And you, sir?
Seth is our new tobacco.
Oh, Seth is the new
so
tobacco
we'll
guy.
be meeting him
Is our new
after.
sheriff?
Our new Maryland.
Oh, Maryland. Maryland.
All right.
Okay, what's your pleasure on the, I only have one question.
Mhm.
When I read it through, if you go to page 5, enforcement and penalties, under 2A subsection B, in case of a second violation within 24 months of the current violation, a fine of $200. That sounds reasonable to me. Because we have had that tolling period before, under the tobacco rules, as we read.
Right.
But in the next line, in the case of 3 or more violations, is that within the 24 months? That was my question.
Yeah, we should probably, we should have it written so that it would
Mhm.
reflect that. But as it reads now, it would not be within the 24 months.
Mhm.
So if you wanted to keep it within 24 months, then I would have to, amend the regulation. However, we could leave it in the case of 3 or more, that there would be the fine.
Well, because in my mind now, let's play devil's advocate, there are 3 violations, and we pull a license or whatever we're going to do. If there's another one the next month, and now there's one 4 years down the road, without that 24-month stipulation on the tolling period, the period goes on forever, right? That's how I.
That's right.
That's how I read it.
You keep getting fined $300 for every
Yeah,
violation.
everyone, the tolling period never resets
Mhm.
on the
Sure,
3rd one.
Sure. And I can understand, well, if somebody has 5 violations, whether it be within a certain time period or
Mhm.
not, then, should we reset the clock for a repeat offender in a way? but
Well, we'll reset the clock anyway for them. But, like I said, do we want to, that's how I read that, and I just wanted to make sure I was clear. Do we want to add the within 24 months of the current violation after the comma in the next line?
To be consistent with the tobacco laws,
Mhm.
I guess that would be more consistent with.
they are, you know, it doesn't have, you know, it is a separate.
Well, I mean, like I said,
Complete separate entity.
when I read through it, that was the only thing that stood out
Okay.
as I wanted something clarified. Because I'm sure if a particular organization has 3 or more violations, we're going to use our suspending authority and get them back into compliance.
Leave it as is.
Leave it at- It's okay,
Yeah, just
as long,
just-
it's been discussed. Like I said, it's been discussed.
Honestly, I'd leave it as is.
Leave it as is?
Because if you keep violating, you
Right.
should keep paying.
Yeah.
And to me, even $100, $200, $300 is not, these people are making money
It's a
hand
different
over
beast.
fist.
It's a
It's
different
not,
beast than a convenience store, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
honestly, I would just leave it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Then as
But
long
that-
as-
no, that's
we-
just
We've
my
had the
opinion.
discussion, and we have an understanding. Any other discussion, questions, whatever?
Is there any limit to how many they can have before they can't sell this stuff?
In terms of,
Violations?
If they do this, they'll be in more trouble than with us.
Well, that would be with their marijuana commission.
Yeah, cannabis
Yeah.
cannabis
Right.
commission.
Okay.
Okay, do we have a motion to accept? And it's going to be effective immediately? We don't want to put a notice to the public, 30
that would
days?
certainly be, you know, up to you as well. However, since the accessory component won't have to be sold down
Mhm.
as it had been previously written in the regulation, when we had given them the 3-month period
Mhm.
to sell their product down. You know, if we wanted to give, you know, maybe we should give folks at least a month, so that way.
Yeah,
we
notice
can-
to the trade.
We
that-
can, and I can mail copies of the regulations to all impacted retailers. So I would give us about a month period.
Okay.
Just so we can notify everyone and then they can become aware of regulations.
So October 11th?
Sure.
Is that a Sunday or a holiday?
I can check. October 11th is a Friday. No holidays.
Good enough. Good enough. We have a motion? We have a second?
I second the motion. Oh, wow.
Okay, I'll make the motion on the approval of the proposed regulation to ensure the sanitary and safe operation of adult-use marijuana establishments and the sale of adult-use marijuana.
I second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Thank you. Now, we have the introduction of Mr. Seth Baker. Please, come on down. Your Maryland's replacement.
Yes, sir.
Big shoes to fill.
I got big feet.
Very
I
good.
like your answer.
Very good. Do you have anything for us? Any updates, or when did you start, or?
Started a couple weeks back.
Okay.
I am on track with the orientation given to me by MTCP. Sarah Leroy, she is the part-time. She's been taking me on inspections and pretty familiar with the process, very straightforward. Marilyn comes in every once in a while. She's scheduled for, I think, 5 weeks. We can have her come in for just a little bit, just to make sure that I'm up to date on everything in the office. I've been sworn into 4 out of the 9 communities that I'll be serving, and I'm scheduled to be sworn in for the others within the next month.
Very good. Okay, welcome aboard. We're looking forward to working with you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Now, there's only one other gentleman in the crowd, but I think we have to put the citizens'
Yes,
input time
yes,
in.
and I put that down, and this is.
I have it on mine. As the only citizen here, do you have anything for citizens' input time, sir?
I'm technically not a citizen of the cities.
All right, so you're out. Anybody else have any comment?
Nothing.
All right, so citizens' input time, there was no one present for input. Okay. Dates for the next meeting?
As everybody gets out their phone.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm sorry, was there any new business?
No new business.
No.
That's
Thank you.
You're right on it.
October 8th, is that the day after the holiday?
Columbus Day is the 14th.
Yeah, it's Swedish, yeah.
Do we have anything coming up pending that we know of?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, so we want to tentatively do 8th or the 22nd, maybe?
Oh, the 22nd, I
Wait a
have
minute, we'll
to,
have the Tuesdays, I'm back to Wednesdays. 9th or the 23rd, 9, 16, or 23? No,
Any
9 or
of-
16, 23, I think I'm taking off for the West Coast.
any of those are fine with me. 23 isn't good, my daughter's having surgery the day before, so.
Newport, so,
I can't do the
Yeah.
16th,
okay.
How about the 9th?
9th. Okay with me.
That
October
works for
9th?
me.
October 9th look good? Do we want to look ahead to November?
Sure.
In case
so-
something gets canceled?
All Wednesdays in November are available for me. We don't want to do the 27th, day
No,
before the
not
holiday,
27th,
unless there's a crisis.
I'm not
No.
available the 13th.
Not available the 13th?
I have nothing, so I'm good.
20th.
20th? Look okay?
That looks good to me.
November 20th.
All right.
Okay.
Great.
Having no other business to come before the board, can we have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second it?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely rest of the day.
Thank